Hey, it's Adeline Van Dyke from Coldwell Banker Faith Properties in Utica. I always get asked, why do I love real estate? It's very simple. I love my clients. I love every single thing about helping them find or sell their home. Making sure the home is solid and ready for sale or solid and ready for the buyer's inspection. To making sure that they're getting the best rate on their mortgage. Making sure they're getting the best price on their house. You know, just everything involved in the sale is vital. My absolute favorite part of real estate is when a buyer walks into the house they're going to buy. I can feel it before they even know they're loving the house. It's just that obvious. So I'd love to experience that feeling with you. So give me a call. Adeline Van Dyke, Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-404-6431. Or you can find me on Facebook or visit my website at centralnewyork.com/Adeline. Thank you, and I look forward to welcoming you home.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725. In the Mohawk Valley, for the best real estate service, you gotta have faith. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-735-2222 or www.centralnyhomes.com.
The following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
March 4th, live from the Disruption Network studios in Utica, New York.
It's opening day for the baseline.
Turned into the baseline. I'm your host, John Schofield, JP, and I'm with my boy SPG, Sean Patrick Gaffney.
What's up, everybody? Let's talk some baseball. It's March. We're coming up on St. Patrick's Day, and right around the corner, right after that, is baseball season. Opening day, which March 29th, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, JP. March 29th is opening day,
March
I think.
29th.
I think it's a Thursday, and
I'm pretty sure everybody's playing.
Every team is in action on opening day this year,
and that's amazing
for the first time, and I couldn't tell you how long, but it's going to be a cool thing to see. You know, right off the bat, every single team in action. Instead of, and it's always kind of cool the way they've done it, where, you have your Sunday night opening game, but that's almost too much of a tease for me. I just want to just jump right into it. Every single team, let's go, get the season underway.
I totally agree, and everybody says that the Sunday nights, those are the opening. That's not opening day. Right. Opening day is when everybody plays.
Right, exactly.
You remember the couple of years where they had it in Japan, and then they came back to spring training.
Yeah, I want to say.
So they go play three. It was the Tampa and
Oakland, maybe, or Seattle. I forget.
And Tampa and New York did one year, didn't they? Some kind of exhibition over there.
Yeah, I think they did. And then there was like a week break until opening day.
They were like three games in before everybody else even left Florida and Arizona. So we are live for the first time with the baseline. Looking forward to a very fun-filled season. We're going to look to get some information out there. Major League Baseball, local and regional sports. We are in the Northeast. Really looking forward to this. Lifelong dream fulfilled right now in these last 30 seconds to sit here and talk to baseball with all of you good folks. So, Sean, we got a lot to get to. We're gonna discuss our previews for the junior and senior circuit. Probably get into some fantasy news and talk about this crazy offseason, or the offseason that wasn't really, with some signings. We've got a lot of guys sitting in limbo right now, waiting for their 1-year deals.
Still some big name guys just sitting there. Jake Arrieta, Carlos Gonzalez, Greg Holland.
They're looking for the 1-year deal.
Some good pitchers out there too. Lance Lynn still sitting there.
Alex
Cobb still there. So some team is likely going to get a bargain on some
Mike
of those
Moustakas,
guys.
I believe, is still out there.
Another one. Yep.
You know, that's somebody that I wouldn't mind seeing a team in the AL East go after. It's a good lefty pop, perhaps a veteran hitter on the bench if he can't crack the starting lineup for one of the better teams. But I don't see any team spending a lot of money on Moustakas if he's not in the cards to start.
Yeah, and I think it's a long shot for the Yankees to go after him. But man, does that guy his game is tailor made for Yankee Stadium.
I didn't want to get into the whole Yankee thing. That's why I didn't mention him. But
you said AL East, so
that's definitely a guy that I could see that he would fit well with him. Lefty pop, able to play 2 positions. I believe he can play first base too, probably.
Yeah, the guy could hit easily 40 home runs playing the Yankee Stadium. I think he had close to 40 last year in Kansas City, which is one of the worst hitter parks in baseball. I think the Brandon Drury thing kind of puts any chances of them signing Moustakas
or
off.
Adam Lind too,
or Adam Lind now too. Yeah, that was another one they just signed.
It's a really
yesterday.
smart move. You're putting, like we just said, a professional hitter on the bench. If he even cracks the lineup, it's a minor league deal. He's got an opt out at the end of it. So if he's not in a good position, perhaps he goes and looks to go someplace else, and he's using the Yankees as a workout facility. So I mean,
yeah, it's
a good pro hitter, Adam Lind. I like that move.
It's a zero risk move.
It's a very zero risk,
and it's
unlike
great.
the Chris Carter move where it was like a $3 million.
It's great insurance too in case something does happen to Greg Bird or another player in the line in the outfield. Hopefully not.
And as we've seen with Greg Bird, injury prone. Not necessarily his fault. Last year, unfortunately, he had that break in his leg and kept him out a little while.
Yeah, he's had a rough few years.
But when he came back, he was an impact maker in that stretch run for the Yankees.
He's got the talent to be a superstar, and I'll mention Greg Bird a little bit more later on. But we're obviously Yankees fans here, so we're going to be talking some Yankees. But we're not going to just talk Yankees. We're going to talk Red Sox, Mets, every team. We're gonna make the rounds around the league here and discuss baseball as a whole because obviously our fan interests are mostly Yankees related, but we're not going to pigeonhole ourselves into just talking about that stuff.
Don't worry about that.
We want to talk about the whole league and the whole sport, really, not just Major League Baseball.
Yeah, really, we're sitting here as 2 baseball fans, and that's what we want to convey to everybody. It's a good point. I'm going to try not to harp on the whole Yankee thing today, but we are going to get to our previews, so we're going to have to talk about them eventually. And I think we're going to discuss some of the Hall of Fame goings-ons for this offseason. A huge class getting inducted this year. Cooperstown, just a hop, skip, and a jump down the road from where we are in Utica, New York. About 45-minute drive, a little less. So we're right near all the action, and we got a couple really good classes in terms of being Yankee fans coming up with Mo next year and Jeter the year after that. But this is a really good class with Chipper and Tomei and some of the older guys getting in on the Veterans Committee, Alan Trammell. It's going to be good.
Good stuff for sure, man. So what do we want to start with? Do you want to kind of make the rounds around the league and make some predictions here, or do you want to cover some headlines and some of the ongoings of spring training? Or
I'm down. Let's we can talk about spring training because it's been good.
So there's a couple things caught my eye in the news this week. Tim Lincecum signed with the Texas Rangers.
So
making a comeback attempt here.
I think that they're probably going to utilize him in the bullpen. If I had to imagine,
I would if he makes the team. Yeah, I mean it's kind of a cool story to track. I think it's a long shot, but who knows? I mean he's got a lot of mileage on that arm, but he's not ancient by any stretch of the imagination. When you see some of these other pitchers out there, Bartolo Colon still pitching.
Yeah, well, that's a man that figured out how to do a craft and make the ball move 6-8 inches off the plate.
Right.
So Bartolo Colon, he's got a rubber arm. He can probably pitch until he's 50. Tim Lincecum, I don't know.
Close.
I don't know how long that yoga style delivery is going to go for him without absolutely ravaging his back. But it's a good story to follow because honestly, that's a team without a set closer at this juncture in time. So should Tim Lincecum prove that he's able to come in with that devastating split change again. And maybe in his workout, apparently he was dialing it up to 91, 92 for these teams. And that's just in a workout with no adrenaline, right? So, if he can get it up in the 93 range and sustain that across an inning, you may see Tim Lincecum closing games in Arlington.
Who knows? You never know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. We've seen some similar surprises like that happen in the past. I mean, it's obviously a long shot, but it's definitely a kind of a cool story to keep tabs on and kind of track throughout the rest of spring here and see where it goes.
I agree. We had a lot of good free agent signings, as stagnant as the class has been, this offseason. We had a lot of good free agent signings. Eric Hosmer to San Diego in a deal that a lot of people questioned, giving him the 8 years, I believe it was, giving him that deal.
No, it was a monster contract.
A lot of people question it, but maybe it shows that San Diego's ready to, try to put a winner out on the field. You remember a couple of years ago when they tried, they took attempt they signed Matt Kemp and C.J. Wilson, I believe. Not C.J. Wilson, he went to the Angels, but they made an attempt a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they made a splash and spent a bunch of money, and it went nowhere.
It went nowhere. And
it actually set them back quite a bit.
But they did good. They did good in the 2 trades with Boston. They got a pretty good return of young players back. Fernando Tatis is one of the players they got back, maybe in the Pomerantz deal or in the Craig Kimbrell, maybe in the Kimbrell deal. But in those 2 deals, they did good. And in true Dombrowski style, he was ready to sell off the farm for a couple players. So the Padres reaped the benefits of that.
So our buddy Caleb, getting back to Tim Lincecum quick, is checking, and Caleb's checking in, and he says Bannister wants to use 6 starters, and Timmy is potentially the 6th guy there.
Really?
And he does make a really good point that everybody in Texas is just fragile. It seems like every year they're losing pitchers left and right, and and that's probably part of what Lincecum was thinking when the Rangers weren't the only team that put out feelers on him and attended his workout and looked at signing him. And if you're Lincecum, that's a major benefit to signing with a team, is kind of looking at their starting pitching situation and seeing where there could be an opportunity to slide in there and start some games. So we'll see what happens there, but. Getting back to Hosmer, I was kind of surprised at one, that the money he got, and 2, the team that he ended up going to. The Padres, they're a bit of a mess, especially in the pitching department. They've got a few decent hitters in that lineup, and some good young guys. Manuel Margot, Hunter Renfroe, Will Myers, still pretty young. He's a decent player, but. Overall, I was kind of surprised to see a team like San Diego shell out that kind of money for.
And only because if you look at that division as a whole, Arizona may be able or maybe on the verge of breaking apart. Should this not be a winner, you could see some pieces flying off. The Grinkies anyway, flying out of Arizona. But San Francisco, that's another team. That's a potential deadline team right there. If you look at San Francisco and you look at the strength of the NL West, and you expect the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks and the Rockies to be the classes of that division, if this experiment with the senior citizens, and Longoria is 34 and Kutch is 32, but they've got miles on them, and
Austin Jackson's another one they signed,
and Hunter Pence is another guy that's there. Same similar situation. If this doesn't work, this little experiment doesn't work in San Francisco, you could see a lot of teams trying to purge that team right there. And, the Giants could get really young in a hurry, really young. And so you look at how young the Dodgers are in that division and loaded.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you look at how young that the Giants could potentially be with a few trades at the deadline for a Kutch or for a Hunter Pence. And get back a couple young studs in a deal, and they could potentially get really young in a hurry. So it doesn't make much sense, like you said, that Hosmer signed for that long of a contract. He does have an opt-out somewhere in there. But again, who's going to pay? And it's front loaded too, and that's a good deal for San Diego, at least in that regard, is that the contract's front loaded.
Yeah, it'll make it easier to move him in a couple years if they have to do that.
Yeah, and the cap hits. He only goes down to like $13 million for the last 4 years, but the cap hits are calculated across total annual value. So they're not taking the 28 or 29 or whatever they're paying them in the front part of the contract. They're not taking that hit against the luxury tax. Not that they're in any danger of getting close to it, but it's a solid front end move the way that the deal is structured. I guess I don't understand it unless they see him as a cornerstone. If that's the way they view him, if they view him as a cornerstone and they just went out and got their guy. Because Hosmer's not old.
Yeah, he's still a pretty young player.
That's going to, the 8-year deal takes him through, what, age 34 or age 35? That's not out of the realm of possibilities that he really fulfills the front end of this contract for him and doesn't end up opting out. But, you got to question a deal like that. A lot of guys still sitting on the shelf, like we were talking about Moustakis and some of the pitchers. But what do you think about Cargo? Where do you think he's going to end up?
I saw an article yesterday in Moustakis. It was tied into it, too, and they said that the Chicago White Sox could potentially be a landing spot for Cargo and Moustakis, which I kind of found to be a bit surprising considering that's a team that's been on such a rebuild youth movement these last few years. But, if the price is right, again, too, if adding an asset like those guys, whether you see him as a long-term member of your team or not, you could flip those guys maybe not this year, depending on what the contract is that they would sign, but, they could bring back some prospects in return too. So who knows, maybe the White Sox are a dark horse there. But yeah, Cargo's, he's somebody I have a hard time kind of finding a good destination for him. I think a Colorado return is probably out of the question at this point. They have outfielders coming out of their ears right now. They're stacked.
They do.
And first base too. Ian Desmond's at first base. They got Parra still there. Charlie Blackmon, one of the best players in the game, anchoring down the outfield. I think Cargo, that ship has sailed to make the Colorado return. I don't know. Maybe there will be some dark horse team that surprises everybody and picks him up, and who knows what's going to happen with him. He had a pretty bad year. He hasn't been really that good in a couple of years, and he's another guy that is just terribly injury prone too. So I don't know. You have any thoughts on where he could go? Any teams come to mind on Cargo?
I was thinking about teams that could potentially be one or two guys away from competing in their respective divisions. You look at a team like the Cardinals, potentially with a 1-year deal, something like that. It's that's a team that traditionally likes veteran hitters, even bench presence. The years that they used guys like Brandon Moss and off their bench all the time, but smart managing of the players to where you're getting them at bats in a game, without the DH. Plus they play all those games on the road now at AL Parks. It would make sense for a team like the Cardinals, I think.
So I just did a search on Carlos Gonzalez. I'm seeing a couple articles. Rockies have kept in touch with him. So who knows? Maybe I don't see it happening, but if the price is right, again, why not? He could end up anywhere. The other Cargo there, Carlos Gomez signed with Tampa. Speaking of Tampa, what is going on down there?
It's a Florida fire sale. If you're right now, if you're Kevin Kiermaier, you got to be waving the white flag in the outfield at Tropicana.
He is not a happy man right now.
What are you guys doing to me? Is what he's wondering, because how could you be happy? You outright release guys rather than even try to shop them on the open market. Corey Dickerson. I didn't understand that move. I won't understand that move. Logan Morrison, they didn't even make an attempt. It's just crazy. But you look at what's happening across the way there in Miami. Man, you want to talk about a team that sold off some parts this year. But, they got a good return. They didn't get a good return from the Yankees.
No, they did not. That was
but, the return, is, you shed $294 million.
Yeah, that was the point of that trade for them, obviously. And Stanton didn't do him any favors by limiting where he would go.
Yeah, but they had 2 deals in place. I mean, just to set the record straight, they had 2 deals in place with the Cardinals and the Giants.
They had, like you said, agreements in place, and he had no interest in going there.
No.
So, I mean, that really limits what Jeter and those guys running the team down there could get back for him.
It looks like a backdoor deal, but
for one thing, you're already limited in teams that are able to take on a contract like that. And then when you have the player saying, okay, here's my short list of teams I'll go to, then, what are you going to do? You have no bargaining power at that point.
No, not at all. The good thing about that for them is that they're $400 million in debt, and they shed a $294 million contract across 10 years. They don't really get the haul that they're looking for from the Yankees, but it really got the waterworks going with getting rid of some of the other players, and they did get decent hauls back for Christian Yelich.
I actually like the Yelich trade for him. I mean,
I like the Yelich trade for the Brewers as well. I think that puts the Brewers, it's arguable that the Brewers have the best outfield in the game right now. When you look at Locane and Domingo Santana and Christian Yelich.
We'll say in the National League because I have to say the Yankees.
Okay.
The Yankees have that title.
Is Brett Gardner in that outfield? Because if Brett Gardner's in that outfield, I don't know. We know my opinion on Brett Gardner.
He probably he's the starting left fielder. But when you got Judge and Stanton, you throw anybody in that third spot, and it's pretty hard to beat that.
It's
that
not
trio.
going to be Jacoby Ellsbury.
Now we know that.
Jacoby Ellsbury recently injured the other day, so
there's a surprise. Jacoby D. Ellsbury.
Indeed. The Yanks are looking at a logjam, maybe. Perhaps.
Yeah, they
at some point in time.
They kind of have an embarrassment of riches right now when it comes to young talent,
especially below the major league level.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's not fair.
They made some moves to trade some prospects, but they held on to a wealth of young talent.
Well, you're going to see when they become Rule 5 eligible that they're going to start making these moves to get veteran guys back on the bench and get rid of guys that they can't control anymore. They're going to lose them to Rule 5. They're not going to add them to the 40-man roster, and they're not going to protect them. So you're going to see the Yankees eventually have to start getting rid of guys like Nick Solak, which you get rid of for Brandon Drury. But if you just look around the Yankees roster, and we're going to get to that after the break.
Please don't get rid of Clint Frazier.
No, absolutely, I agree. Anthony Z. Donaldson with the dynamite drop in.
Just getting it dropped in and out, buddy.
No, that's all good. What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts? Am I going to switch in? Am I in now? Are you tagging me in?
Oh, you're in.
Is this what's happening right now? What are my thoughts about the Yankees?
Absolutely.
They're going to produce a lot of offense.
Yeah.
And I just hope everybody, knock on wood, stays healthy. And the pitching comes around. They do need another front-end starter, but if the starters can go 5, the bullpen can lock it up.
Yeah.
And, these teams are going to have to score 7, 8 runs to beat the Yankees this year.
Absolutely.
I mean, from top to bottom, how many potential 40 home run hitters do they have in that lineup right now? 4. More.
And opponents are going to have to score those runs early, too, with that bullpen sitting there lined up to close out the game.
The Yankees are in not even a weird position, but a weird position for the Yankees, and any Yankee fan could tell you, that they're going in with, Chasen Shreve is the weakest link in that bullpen that they can carry. It's pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
Going all the way to Betanzas.
When you're going to go to Canley, and Chad Green had an exceptional. Chad Green had a historically good
It's
year
crazy how under the radar,
year.
how good his season one that didn't get a lot of attention for how good he was last year.
Ks per 9, walks per 9, whip. The guy was off the charts last year. Come in, do 2-3 innings. So if you look at it in terms of, you got Adam Warren, who's the same kind of guy as a Chad Green. And you got Adam Warren and Chad Green down there, and each of them can go 2 to 3 inning stints twice a week. So that's 4 times you can be covered 2 to 3 innings out of that bullpen by one of those guys.
And then you have 4 guys that are
then you got
top flight closer quality
Canley,
pitchers.
Robertson, Betances, and Chapman any night of the week. it's scary.
It is very scary.
It's scary.
On top of scoring
So,
7-8 runs a game.
You're really looking for your starters at that point in time to give you 6 or 7 solid innings. Maybe your better guys or your top of the rotation guys you want to see give you a little longevity. The Sonny Grays and Luis Severinos, that's the guys you want to see maybe go out there and dominate for 7-8 innings, give the bullpen a rest. But you look at a CC Sabathia, give me 5 innings, guy.
Yeah.
That's it.
My prediction, Sonny Gray is going to come out of his shell this year because he's finally going to get run support. He never had any run support in Oakland, and last year he was the only pitcher that didn't get any run support in the Yankees rotation. None.
That was the ironic thing. He comes to the Yankees,
and he pitched great.
He still doesn't get run
and he
support.
did pitch good.
Pitched great.
Yeah. He did, and I think this year he really comes out of his shell, and
If Sonny
finally
Gray
it's
can
going to be that
pitch-
Sonny Gray that everybody heard about.
If Sonny Gray can pitch to like a 3.15, somewhere around that on that team, he's going to be fine. You're looking at a 15 to 17 win season for Sonny Gray.
Yeah.
The potential to go get bombed is there.
Oh, yeah.
Especially at home.
Yeah.
And it happened to him a few times
if
in
he gets it up,
September.
because he gets it up and he gets it up in the zone, and everybody knows that's a jet stream there. It's just the way it is. It's the nature of the beast at Yankee Stadium. But listen,
It's going to be a great year, fellas.
If that's your third guy, if you're talking Tanaka, I'm sure Dave is out there listening right now. Our buddy Dave.
Yeah,
who,
Dave chimed in a few times.
He did chime in.
Who will eventually be on the show, I'm sure, with us. And we're going to do our live draft, everybody. We're going to do we got our fantasy baseball league that's been going on for a very long time now. And this year we're going to go live with our draft.
Yeah, two
right
weeks
here.
from today, and this is the 15th annual Electric Company Fantasy Baseball League.
Yeah, baby. 15
15
years. I can't
15
believe
years.
it.
I've been doing it, I think, 9.
And he's
He's
won at
111.
8. I'm just going to give my $100 to Gaffney. I'm like, here, bro, just take it.
That's
I've only won 4 times.
That's all. But you're always in the hunt. And we're going to get to some fantasy stuff later
Yeah,
on.
for sure.
We're going to take a little short break here, and then we're going to get into our previews. You are tuned into the Baseline on Disruption Networks.
Hey, it's Adeline Van Dyke from Coldwell Banker Faith Properties in Utica. I always get asked, why do I love real estate? It's very simple. I love my clients. I love every single thing about helping them find or sell their home. Making sure the home is solid and ready for sale, or solid and ready for the buyer's inspection, to making sure that they're getting the best rate on their mortgage, making sure they're getting the best price on their house. Just everything involved in the sale is vital. My absolute favorite part of real estate is when a buyer walks into the house they're going to buy. I can feel it before they even know they're loving the house. It's just that obvious. So I'd love to experience that feeling with you. So give me a call. Adeline Van Dyke, Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-404-6431. Or you can find me on Facebook or visit my website at centralnewyork.com/Adeline. Thank you, and I look forward to welcoming you home.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725. In the Mohawk Valley, for the best real estate service, you gotta have faith. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-735-2222 or www.centralnyhomes.com.
Hey, it's Adeline Van Dyke from Coldwell Banker Faith Properties in Utica. I always get asked, why do I love real estate? It's very simple. I love my clients. I love every single thing about helping them find or sell their home. Making sure the home is solid and ready for sale, or solid and ready for the buyer's inspection, to making sure that they're getting the best rate on their mortgage, making sure they're getting the best price on their house. Just everything involved in the sale is vital. My absolute favorite part of real estate is when a buyer walks into the house they're going to buy. I can feel it before they even know they're loving the house. It's just that obvious. So I'd love to experience that feeling with you. So give me a call. Adeline Van Dyke, Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-404-6431. Or you can find me on Facebook or visit my website at centralnewyork.com/Adeline. Thank you, and I look forward to welcoming you home.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725. In the Mohawk Valley, for the best real estate service, you gotta have faith. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-735-2222 or www.centralnyhomes.com.
Hey, it's Adeline Van Dyke from Coldwell Banker Faith Properties in Utica. I always get asked, why do I love real estate? It's very simple. I love my clients. I love every single thing about helping them find or sell their home. Making sure the home is solid and ready for sale or solid and ready for the buyer's inspection. To making sure that they're getting the best rate on their mortgage. Making sure they're getting the best price on their house. You know, just everything involved in the sale is vital. My absolute favorite part of real estate is when a buyer walks into the house they're going to buy. I can feel it before they even know they're loving the house. It's just that obvious. So I'd love to experience that feeling with you. So give me a call. Adeline Van Dyke, Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-404-6431. Or you can find me on Facebook or visit my website at centralnewyork.com/Adeline. Thank you, and I look forward to welcoming you home.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725. In the Mohawk Valley, for the best real estate service, you gotta have faith. Coldwell Banker Faith Properties, 315-735-2222 or www.centralnyhomes.com.
A lot of
Sorry.
live broadcasts, live remotes from places like Cooperstown and the Hall of Fame weekend We're really looking to cement down there and see if we can get set up for the entire weekend and see who we can get on, stop by and talk to us and give their input on the game, whether it be former players, managers, scouts. We're going to have our boy Caleb coming on. Caleb is a scout, going to offer a really good perspective on the game, a perspective on younger players especially. Really looking forward to getting Caleb on the show. And speaking of the Hall of Fame, we're going to touch on the Hall of Fame here before we get into our previews for each team.
Yeah, we mentioned a little bit at the beginning of the show, but Chipper Jones, Vlad Guerrero, Jim Thome, Trevor Hoffman, and then Morris and Trammell going in together.
There's not an argument in the entire class.
Great class.
No
and
problem with any
Bob
of those
Costas
guys.
getting the Ford C. Frick.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it that I really am not the biggest Bob Costas fan.
What?
I'm not.
We're fighting.
That's fine. That's fine. He's not my favorite. Not by any means. He's no Vince Scully, but
I love Scully.
I do. He's a poet.
Nobody's Vince Scully.
Scully's
Right.
a poet. Costas is a little dry for me in the baseball. He's a better Olympian type guy. Maybe bobsled is more his thing.
When he doesn't have pink eye, he's great.
Costas and Troutwig, live from the top of the hill from turn 6 or whatever. That's more inclined to be Costas' thing. But listen, you don't get the Ford C. Frick unless you put in your time and you're respected among your peers. So,
Yeah, Syracuse graduate, too.
Absolutely.
and he's a Cuse guy, exactly.
Go Orange.
All right, I agree. All right, I love Bob
So
Costas.
one guy that did not get into the Hall of Fame this year, Edgar Martinez. What are your thoughts on Edgar Martinez in the Hall of Fame?
Okay, so my thoughts, first you got to know my thoughts on the Hall of Fame. And my thoughts on the Hall of Fame is exactly that. It's a Hall of Fame. And if you're dominant in your era, you should be considered for the Hall of Fame. I think that we put a lot of emphasis on imaginary thresholds and imaginary numbers. And the game has evolved so much that you might not see these imaginary numbers start to get hit anymore. The 300 wins is the first one that comes to mind in the era of the 5-man rotation, where these guys didn't have relievers back then. They were
Or
getting,
a pitch count.
They were getting 47, 47 starts a year, 50 starts a year, capable of getting into the 30 wins. And nobody's ever going to get the 500, 511, or whatever Cy Young has. That's just not going to happen. So you're going to see the days of the 300 win guys start to dwindle down. So if a guy gets to 286, is he a Hall of Famer because he didn't get those other 14 wins? Is he not a Hall of Famer? You look at a guy like Pedro Martinez. I think Pedro Martinez maybe only had 205 wins or something like that. But he was like 110 games over 500.
Mike Messina.
Mike Messina's a guy. He spent his entire career in the AL East, and he pitched to a 3.5 less ERA. He's a dominant guy. 120-win season, but still, that's another number that, what's a win for a pitcher? Does that really dictate how well he pitched for that season? And I don't think it does. So back to my point is, I think that it's a Hall of Fame, and it should be for the best players of their era compared to players of their era. And he really defined the role as a designated hitter, and a lot of people have a problem with designated hitters being considered for the Hall of Fame because they don't play a position. But if you ask Ken Griffey Jr. what an impact Edgar Martinez had on the beginning of his career, he's going to tell you that it doesn't matter that he didn't go out there and play first base or fumble through playing third base, because I think he was a third baseman by trade.
He was,
right?
yeah. Yep.
Fumble through playing third base with maybe bad knees or a bad back. I'd rather just have you be prepared to hit 4 times a game in front or behind of the Buners and the Griffeys and the Alex Rodriguez's. That's where I want you, and that's where I want your focus. And he really did a good job at crafting that rollout. If you look at the numbers, he's probably not a Hall of Famer.
He's
right?
got a 312 career average.
Okay.
309 home runs, 514 doubles.
He's a double machine.
Double machine. Made the All-Star game 7 times, 5-time Silver Slugger Award winner. He played just over 2,000 games, and about 1,400 of them were at DH. A little over 500 at third base. So, yeah, he was a DH 75% of the time.
And so was Frank Thomas, though.
How many career hits did he have?
2,200.
Yeah, he didn't hit the 3,000 mark.
No, it's considerably short of 3,000. As I recall.
He was. Let's see. I'll look that up.
Baseball Reference, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there listening, Baseball Reference is the greatest website on the internet, by far. Limitless possibilities of what you can find out, splits, how a pitcher fared against a certain batter for his career. If you really want to get into barroom arguments with your friends in regards to any numbers about baseball,
So
Baseball Reference is your friend.
He had just over 2,200 hits.
2,200 hits.
2,200. So, he falls considerably short of that 3,000 hit metric. And for a lot of guys, probably especially the voters out there that are down on Edgar Martinez, they look at him as a designated hitter without the numbers.
Those are the old school writers, I think,
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Don't you, the
So
older guys?
The new school method of thinking, and I'm more inclined to be part of this new school method of thinking, is the 10-year peak. All right, a lot of guys will take the 10-year peak and see how they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers that you just read off with the 7 All-Stars, I'm sure that happened within his 10-year peak, right?
I'm sure, yeah.
That's insane. His numbers are insane across a 10-year period of the game. If you can't say that he was the best at his position while he was playing or while he was in his 10-year peak, you'd be lying to yourself, because he was. So, I'm in for Edgar Martinez for being in the Hall of Fame.
Gaff, what do you think?
I'm on the Edgar Martinez Hall of Fame bandwagon, I guess you'd say. And I think he's got 1 year left of eligibility for the regular vote, and then he would have to go to a Veterans Committee vote after that. 20 votes shy of making it this year. He was on 297 of 422 ballots.
If I'm not mistaken, nobody that's reached that threshold at any point during the voting process has ever been denied the Hall of Fame at some point. They've all gotten in.
Wow, no doubt.
So, I mean, we're probably looking at Edgar Martinez, but there's so many other guys that 10-year peak applies to, or the Kirby Puckett rule applies to.
One of the all-time greats, one of my favorites.
Absolutely. And so that's another guy. If you look at the numbers, he didn't quite qualify for those imaginary, mysterious metrics, the 3,000 hits and 500 home runs and the 300 wins and such, and 4,000 Ks. He didn't, or 3,000 Ks it would be, because 4,000 is probably only about 4 guys or 5 guys. He didn't qualify for that, but what they did is they prorated what he did in the front part of his life, and they prorated it to the end and said, this is what he would have done. They forecasted it out and said, this is what he would have done, because he got hurt with his eyes, and then he ended up dying, unfortunately, sadly. But, the whole Kirby Puckett mentality should maybe be applied to a couple other guys. Don Mattingly, and I'm not saying that, from a Yankee perspective at all, but you want to talk about a guy in his 10-year peak that was the best at his craft. That's Don Mattingly. He was a superstar in the game. He was the face of the game for a period in the 80s. The best defender. He's got a couple Gold Gloves, but that's a guy that comes up short of any metrics of getting into the Hall of Fame. And he got denied by the Veterans Committee this year. He wasn't one that got passed on. So what I want you to look at now is you're going to be looking at a Hall of Fame that contains Alan Trammell, but not Don Mattingly. And you know what I mean? And I'm certainly not discounting Alan Trammell's accomplishments, but they're certainly comparable to what Donnie Baseball did. And so they need to open it back up.
Trammell had a longer career.
Look at some guys.
Yeah,
And Trammell had Lou Whitaker.
And
That was the best double play combo ever.
He had the title in
the
title in 1984.
Can I voice my opinion on Edgar Martinez?
Yeah.
I don't think Edgar Martinez gets in until Big Papi gets into the Hall of Fame. I think Big Papi's the very first designated hitter ever to go in the Hall of Fame.
And Big Papi's a shoe-in.
And he's got to be a shoe-in, right? I think Big Papi is the first designated hitter to go in the Hall of Fame. Then after that,
yeah, but we're not counting Frank
Edgar
Thomas
Martinez
as a designated hitter.
well, he was a first baseman.
I would bet
most of his career.
I would bet you that he's probably more towards the 65 to 70% of games and at bats being as a DH.
Papi?
No.
Oh,
Frank Thomas.
Nah.
I would venture to bet. Stat boy?
I'll see what I can
towards the
find
end of
here.
his career for sure.
No,
well, Frank Thomas is already in, but I don't consider him a Hall of Fame or not a Hall of Famer. I don't consider him as a DH. I consider him more as a first baseman.
Yeah, I consider Frank Thomas a DH.
Yeah?
So that's the way I look at him. Jim Thome may have played more games in the field than he did as a DH, but towards the end of his career, and also because he played a lot of time in
The outfield.
Philly. When he was in Philly, he came off the bench a lot of times, towards the end of his career. So, you got to put him in as a position and not as a DH.
So Frank Thomas,
Yep.
971 games at first base.
Okay.
1,310 at designated hitter.
Wow. You're right. So he's more DH.
But still,
So
that split. I mean, yeah,
that split is not
sure,
as severe. What's David Ortiz's split?
It favors DH there, obviously.
What's David Ortiz's
gotta be
split?
Because comparable to that.
I don't know. He's probably over that. I would bet you he's got a higher split as a DH than Frank Thomas does. But he did play some games at first base when he was with Minnesota, and then at first with Boston too.
Yeah, his first
But
half of
you
his
want to
Boston
talk
career was
about
at first.
you want to
The
talk
splits
about a
for
guy.
Ortiz are severe. Over 2,000 games at DH. 278 games at first base.
Wow. And that's with
That's
Boston
pretty severe.
and Minnesota. That's his career.
Yeah, that's his entire
Career
career. So
splits.
that's less than 2 seasons of playing in the field.
And that's considerably more than Edgar Martinez. Considerably more.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a guy that could get a home run when you needed it, and that was David Ortiz. A Yankee killer.
Oh, yeah.
A Yankee killer.
I was happy to
2004.
see him retire, I'll tell you.
I was too. He was an absolute Yankee
Yeah,
killer.
but okay, we're all Yankee fans here in this room, and of course we're gonna be stroking the Yankees on this show, left and right over here, you guys. Anyways, you gotta respect the man, though. You have to. Big Papi was a great humanitarian, and especially when that whole Boston Marathon went on, and he grabbed the mic when he stepped up, even though he cursed. I mean, that was great. It was like, yeah. I mean, I loved him for doing that.
It's not like we're talking about like Des Moines, Iowa, in the crowd there. You know what I mean? It was Boston guys. It's not like they never heard,
You could say it.
expletives. No, because once I say it, it's out there in cyberspace, and then it can echo forever. And I'm not a swearer.
Okay, gotcha.
I
Anyway,
mean, what the fuck you think I am?
where's the rim shot? But anyways, but I think Big Papi should get in before Edgar Martinez. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I don't know how quick the clock turns for Edgar Martinez in terms of getting in. Not too many shoe-ins coming up in the next 2 years, other than the 2 that we discussed. So maybe he's got a chance.
Good point, though. Who is coming up other than Jeter and Rivera?
Chipper Jones
he's
is
in.
a guy. No, Chipper Jones is a guy this year that's really intriguing for me, because that percentage of vote is really indicative of how good of a player he was across his career.
No, he was one of the best switch hitters of all time.
Top two.
For sure.
Mickey Mantle. I mean, there's others. I don't know if he's top 2. No. I'm recanting, but he's good. And
so it looks like for next year, some of the bigger names, and yeah, it's not anything like the roster of Hall of Fame inductees for this year, but you got some of the guys that were on the ballot this past year. Edgar Martinez, Mike Mussina, the steroid guys, Clemens, Bonds,
and eventually that tide is going to turn, and they're going to get in. And
I think more in the Legends ballot. I think they get in.
Again, we're talking it's a Hall of Fame, right? Do I think that cheating should preclude you from the Hall of Fame? Of course I do. I do. But it wasn't against the rules. Not when they were doing it, supposedly. It's not against the rules. It was frowned upon. It was wrong. All right? It was an advantage.
There's no drug testing.
But it wasn't against the rules. You look at a guy like, we can talk Pete Rose until we're blue in the face, but that's against the rules what he did. It's posted in every major league clubhouse and dugout. That's against the rules. So do I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely not. I don't, because that's the one cardinal. As a player, absolutely.
Lifetime ban means a lifetime ban.
Lifetime ban is a lifetime ban. Should his accolades as a player be recognized by that Hall of Fame? Absolutely. All right.
And just not to turn this into a Pete Rose discussion.
No, that's
we
okay.
could go on forever. But
like I said, till we're blue in the face. It's
one
easy.
thing I will say about Pete Rose is he's not done himself any favors in recent years. He could have probably got himself back into the good graces of Major League Baseball, and maybe someday had a chance.
A full admission without the chance of profit.
Yeah, and not to mention all the other just random small things. Small relatively, I guess. Some of the big things that has happened in his life over the last 10,
some
15,
of the
20
there's
years.
other allegations other than gambling that's might be contributing to his lifetime ban perpetuating. So you're right, he hasn't done himself any favors coming out on TV and admitting that he did it on the skirts of selling a book.
And I hate that he's not in the Hall of Fame, based on just who the player he was.
But his managerial record should be stricken, just like it is. It just shouldn't exist. You're betting on, whether you're betting on your team or against your team, you have undoubtedly put yourself in a position where you can influence the outcome of a Major League Baseball game that you have money on, and that's wrong. So as a manager, I think that should all be forgotten as being a part of Major League Baseball going forward. Not coach, not part of the front office. I'm all for that, but bringing them back like they did. You remember the year they brought them all the 50 greatest or 100. It was the 50 greatest when they did it at the All-Star game, and then they carted Ted Williams out. Bringing Pete Rose back for things like that, it has to happen, right? Because you can't forget what kind of player he was in the game. But the manager, that stuff just sullies a lot of things for me on Pete Rose, unfortunately. And
just real quick to first ballot Hall of Fame eligible players next year: Mariano Rivera, Roy Halladay is another one.
He's in. I especially.
Man, what a tragedy!
But you're talking about another guy with a 10-year peak that's not going to hit your standard metrics. He doesn't have 300 wins. He doesn't have 3,000 Ks. I mean, he may. I don't have the stats in front of me. I know he doesn't have 300 wins, but
he was so dominant. Though.
He was
killed it.
So
killed it. He was scary good.
Could you be looking at a Hall of Fame with Jack Morris and no Roy Halladay? You know what I mean? I have again, not to harp back on who should be in and who shouldn't be in, but there's guys from when we were growing up, like Dave Steeb. You remember Dave Steeb?
How many one-game hitters does he have?
A lot.
Near perfect
like
games. 9. Yeah, right.
You're talking about a guy that dominated for a 6 or 7 or 10-year period in his career. Steve Garvey. There's another guy. This 2,900 hits or 2,800 hits, not. It automatically disqualifies you because it's not 3,000. Or Jim Cott. How about Jim Cott's got 285 wins and 14 Gold Gloves? Not a member of the Hall of Fame. Again, we're talking about these imaginary numbers really being indicative of who gets in and who doesn't, where it's a Hall of Fame. And I think that a lot of that is lost. Like Roger Maris isn't in the Hall of Fame. All right. So you look at Roger Maris's career and the numbers don't quite match up with some of the Hall of Famers, but you look at that peak and that back-to-back MVPs and 61 homers. You're talking about a guy that that's a fame guy. They talk about the Hall of the Very Good, right?
Who else is on that list coming up?
Todd Helton, Andy Pettitte, Lance Berkman, Roy Oswalt, Miguel Tejada.
None.
I don't think any of them get in.
None.
Kevin Youkilis. Yeah, so
you're going to see an awful lot of guys that drop off.
So too. To get back to Edgar Martinez, this is his last year to be eligible for the vote, and this could be
well, he couldn't pick a better class, right?
This could be it based on the other first time,
a better crop,
the first timers coming
so
up.
You might also be looking at the steroid guys get a push in this one coming up, and what's a Hall of Fame without Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens? Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I understand that near the end of the careers that they enhance themselves. I'm not a fool. I'm not. But what's a Hall of Fame?
The problem is they didn't do themselves any favors either by not admitting. And
Barry Bonds is
Roger Clemens is going to the grave with the. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Barry Bonds too. Barry Bonds never said a word.
Right.
But the thing that helped Barry Bonds out was the Victor Conti. I think it was the Belko guy.
Victor Conti, really?
Yeah.
The guy who owns the billiard shop down there?
No. Of course, if we're talking about anything in Utica and you say the name Victor Conti, we're going to have 5 or 6 of them probably because it's a common name. It just is. But no, the guy from Belko, who they put him on the stand and he said nothing. He didn't give Barry Bonds up at all. And that helped Bonds, actually. So of all the guys that are in the position, the thing that really hurt Barry out of all of it was he was the one that you could really tell had physically changed, right? It was, had Barry Bonds not physically changed and morphed into that pile of muscle that he did.
Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire stand out to me.
Yeah.
The two guys that just, you take you go look at old baseball cards and you look at like some of the late 80s, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds. they're skinny little kids, and
absolutely.
they were young.
That 1984 Team USA tops
not
for
like
Mark
they
McGuire,
did.
right?
Yeah.
But as a rookie, that guy hit 40 homers, and we all know what kind of power Barry Bonds had. So if at some point in time they were taking roids, now Alex Rodriguez, there's a guy who admitted to it, right? Could you really tell that he was all roided up? He wasn't a mound of muscle. He was still very athletic. So had Barry Bonds maintained any of that and not had as much suspicion around him, I think he probably could have got away with it, because nobody would have questioned Barry Bonds hitting 70 homers in that season because every pitch he saw he hit out of the park, and that's not because of steroids.
Right, it's hand-eye coordination.
It's not because of steroids at all. It's because he
Not
was the
to
best
mention-
left-handed hitter of that era, and maybe one of the top 3 or 4 left-handed hitters of all
Not to
time.
mention the guy walked 200
200
times a year too.
They
Imagine
walked
if
him
they
with
didn't
the
pitch
bases
around him, he would have hit 100 home runs.
Walked him
every
with the
year.
bases loaded.
Yeah.
All-time record in intentional walks too, right? Season record.
I'm sure it
maybe.
is. It's got to be.
He's got the walks
Gotta
record.
be
He's got
Barry
the
Bonds.
he had the runs scored record too, right?
And how many balls ended up in the water?
Splash hits.
How many splash hits did the guy have?
Old Navy splash hits. A lot. And those balls continually got more in value as his season went on.
Yeah, they're
I
fighting.
don't
over
know.
him.
If Barry Bonds doesn't get, I don't want to call him greedy, but if he doesn't go after Hank Aaron's record and kind of just rides off into the sunset, I think that he would already be in. Honestly, you're talking about a guy with all MVP awards and Gold Gloves and 500 homers and 500 steals, and right. It's a guy that didn't need to do what he did.
He just loved controversy, though.
He loved it.
He did. He
I
just
kinda
fed
liked
off the
it.
drama.
kinda
I
liked
mean,
it.
every
Yeah.
day he's like the LeBron James. If you think about that
Fighting
comparison,
with the media, and
he was
just-
constantly on
And not
ESPN
one-
throughout the whole '90s and the early 2000s.
I don't think Barry Bonds has ever had a conversation in his life and for 30 seconds gone without mentioning my godfather's Willie Mays. So many times you hear that out of that guy's mouth.
The only 2 words Andy Van Slyke and Barry Bonds said to each other when they played together in the Pittsburgh outfield? Got it. They hated each other.
Andy Van Slyke. Speaking of Andy Van Slyke, maybe we can get him on the show someday.
Yeah.
That's a local boy. That's a guy from.
So you got a guy who's
New
got a guy
Hartford.
who knows a guy got a guy?
That's Utica. Back to Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. And Roger Clemens, all those Cy Youngs before blossoming into the steroid guy that he was, which was that he didn't do himself any favors chucking that bat at Mike Piazza.
No.
That was roid rage on display for 3 million people right
Yeah.
there. That's what that was.
In the World Series on the biggest stage.
Yeah.
But
throwing a bat.
we're talking about a Hall of Fame without these guys, and those guys are Hall of Famers to me, because without steroids they were still the best in the game. So they're really head scratchers.
Wasn't Piazza linked to steroids at
Yes,
one time? Right?
absolutely.
And he's in the Hall of Fame.
He is.
He got in last year.
Yeah.
He's a little bit tougher of a case to kind of prove, I guess.
Catcher position.
He's catching. He wasn't really jacked. He had that oppo power anyway. Coming up, he had that sound. He won, Rookie of the Year, and he wasn't doing steroids when he first came up. And I believe he was a
None of them were, though.
62nd round pick or something
Except
like
for
that.
Jose Canseco.
As a favor to Tommy Lasorda.
Canseco's doing steroids right now.
Canseco came out of the womb doing steroids.
He did. Nobody ever remembers that Canseco had a twin brother. I think he killed him.
Ozzy.
I think
Ozzy Canseco.
Ozzy Canseco's like somewhere denying that he's Jose Canseco's brother.
He's the before pitcher.
He is. Yeah, absolutely. They can still do it.
Yeah.
He's the version. He's like the dark Sammy Sosa. Anybody, you keeping track on that? Have you seen that?
What's that? No.
Sammy Sosa is white now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I
He went
saw-
the Michael Jackson route.
Did you
did.
see that recent picture of him wearing a cowboy outfit, like full cowboy hat?
Oh, yeah. I saw it.
Western shirt and everything. He's
I
on
did.
the beach with his girlfriend, just
It's
posing.
a very interesting case. So maybe he was overcome with remorse.
Yeah, look that up. Sammy Sosa cowboy picture. You'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah, and you're going to question the fact that it's even Sammy Sosa. Baseball been very, very good to me. That's not
And
the-
very, very bad.
yeah. Well, all of a sudden, I mean, the guy's given interviews for years. He's given interviews just fine.
Now, when you say he's gone white, what do you mean? Like his pigment? Like is he taking injections or something?
I don't know
like a
that
Michael Jackson thing.
I don't know that that's
Michael
what
Jackson?
he's doing. I don't know the route that he took to get to being white, but he's definitely white.
Wow, I gotta look this up.
He's white.
Yeah, you'll get a laugh out of it.
That's a guy that didn't do himself any favors in front of Congress. But the one man in the world that did himself the least amount of favors out of all the steroids guy. Anybody know who I'm going to say?
Not Jose Canseco?
No.
Manny Ramirez.
No. Well, close. Rafael Palmeiro. Rafael Palmeiro in front of Congress said, I don't do this stuff. And then literally that season got busted.
He failed, yeah.
Yeah. So,
he's trying to come back. Did you see that?
Rafael
Rafael Palmeiro
see.
said he wants to make a
another
Major League
storyline
Baseball comeback.
We need to pay attention to.
He's in his 50s, I believe, and he wants to come back and play Major League Baseball.
And he's still got a better shot of being on a Major League roster than Tim Tebow. All right. And sadly that we've come to a state in baseball that there's actually people out there that think this is going to happen. More of a PR move, I would assume.
Yeah.
Locally, we just had the Mets take over the Syracuse.
Well, it starts next year.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't start this year. It starts next year. The Mets will be in Syracuse.
Will be in Syracuse.
Yeah, AAA.
Syracuse and Binghamton, because that's where their AA team is in Binghamton.
Okay.
So they're going to be very close to each other. But you might see Tim Tebow arrive in Syracuse or Binghamton in the next couple of years to fill the seats. I mean, the guy's a monster. He's 6'5", 240, 250, whatever he is.
Chiseled,
right?
bro.
He's absolutely
He's an action
chiseled,
figure,
right?
that guy.
So undoubtedly he's going to be able to hit a baseball very far, right? It's just, what do you do when you see that exploding slider?
Or the curveball.
And I don't know if anybody out there, if you really want to look at something funny, look up Tim Tebow's at bat against Max Scherzer this week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Don't blink, because it's over very quickly. And it is a strikeout. I won't be, I won't leave you in suspense.
Does he mow him over?
But it's about maybe 25 seconds.
Yeah.
It's him playing catch with his catcher. That's all it is.
He just brings the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even fair.
Yeah, let's see that.
So
well, Tebow is going to put some fannies in the seats, though. Put him in at like Port St. Lucie, or put him in their AA or AAA, and they will definitely fill some seats. Or for a little publicity stunt, bring him up to the big club, let him strike out 4 times, send them back down.
Well, it is kind of a fun thing for the fans. You know,
is.
I mean, especially with spring training being in Florida and him, Florida Gators fame, and definitely getting some attention. The guy has no chance to be a Major League Baseball player.
No, but the thing is,
as far as minor league
you
teams,
can
Binghamton or Syracuse bringing in people, if he's still in the organization when they're trying to bring him up to AA or AAA, then
I still just have a problem with
minor
Tim
league
Tebow
sports are all about gimmicks and promotions and stuff like that.
As a baseball player, I just do. Mainly because of the fact that if I was blessed at being 6'5" and etched out of stone, and I can evade tacklers in the NFL with the greatest of ease. He's a very good football player, and very hung on being a quarterback at that next level instead of, put the ball in my hands, I'll line up at the tight end position, or this wildcat, and I'm on a football roster. And no, he wanted to go be, touchdown Jesus and lead his team to victory. I mean, the guy won a playoff game, so there is that. But,
but he also has 2 national championships and 2 Heisman trophies.
One Heisman.
No, he's got 2. He definitely has 2.
I thought Archie Griffin was the only one that had
But the
2.
guy, look it up. I don't know. You're the fact checker. But you can't take away the fact the guy is an amazing athlete, and he could just get so much slack because he's such a nice dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's got that image, like a squeaky clean image.
I'm not even.
And he really is a good human being.
He's just not.
And that's why he gets so much slack, because he's not a bad boy.
He's just not a guy that I see as even having the potential of being a Major League Baseball player.
Right.
And so I just see him gumming up the works. Is it a publicity stunt? Yeah. But if Russell Wilson were to quit football right now and join the Yankees or whatever team, honestly, I could see Russell Wilson playing at that level.
Yeah.
Just from
you think so?
Yeah, I do.
I don't think he goes all the way to the top.
You don't?
Mm-mm.
I think he's got enough pop and enough speed to get there. You're talking about a guy that was drafted twice or 3 times, spent some time in the Rockies organization before going back to college and
Rockies,
going to Wisconsin and
Texas.
getting drafted. But why take a beating as soon as I don't even know how long his contract is with the Seahawks, but why take that beating afterwards if your contract expires and you can go and maybe catch on at the level. You know, you're not going to make $70 million a year in Major League Baseball, but I think Russell Wilson could probably make it. He's a better baseball talent than Tim Tebow.
What a story that would be if he quits football and joins baseball and wins a World Series with baseball, and he has a Super Bowl ring and a World Series ring. Oh, my God.
He would be the first one.
Russell Wilson also struck out the other day, but he actually looked half decent at the plate. He looks like a baseball player.
Honestly, I thought that was a great at bat.
Whereas
he put a really good swing on that first pitch.
I see Tim Tebow up there. You know, not just the Max Scherzer thing, but even the minors. When they show his highlights, he just does not look like a baseball player.
He's got a long, looping, hitchy swing.
He's a football player with a bat.
He is. But when he connects, he's going to hit it a long way.
He's a linebacker in the outfield.
He is.
It's just so watching him, he's like, don't.
Listen,
so
last year
big.
watching him take, I haven't
man.
watched him take any fungos this year, but watching him take fungos out in the outfield, man, that was bad. Only thing missing from that circus was the tent. You know, but I honestly, I don't think that Tim Tebow is worth a spot right now in a major league.
Well, you know, like we were saying, it's
the
gimmick of minor league baseball and spring training, and it is what it is, and you can't blame the Mets for doing that.
No. But I don't think it's gonna last the season. It's not gonna go just spring training. He's gonna take up a roster spot in Class A St. Lucie or Norfolk or wherever. I used to know the Mets affiliates, but I don't know where they are. They used to be in Norfolk and the Tidewater Tides when I was a kid.
There you go.
That was one of the Mets affiliates, but.
So you want to do a rundown of?
Absolutely.
Can we? Your dad chimes in. He says a boxing match on pay-per-view: Tebow versus Wilson.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Tebow whoops his ass. Honestly,
Wilson's probably quicker.
He's quicker, but he's got to be giving up 6 or 7 inches and about maybe 65 pounds, 70 pounds.
Yeah.
So
Tebow's chiseled,
he is.
bro. You look at
he's kind of jacked.
He looks like an action figure. He's
really does. Jacked.
He's
you know who Tebow reminds me of is like a Brendan Fraser type character. Like he's just Mr. Nice Guy. You know what I mean? That's the kind of guy Tim Tebow reminds me of. So maybe someday
romantic comedy.
Exactly.
Star.
Maybe someday he's got that budding career.
That'll be his post baseball career.
Yeah.
Post football is baseball, and post baseball will be rom coms.
Or maybe like skateboarding.
A daytime soap opera.
Professional skateboarding is his next venture. Yeah, find a board big enough.
So let's do a run through of the league before we head out here. And now that we just talked about the Mets, let's just jump right to the NL East.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on the NL East? I think it's obvious that Washington is going to win that division, barring any kind of catastrophic injuries.
I went out on a limb when we get to our predictions. I went out on a limb for the NL East, and I'll say that, from the surface, it looks like it's a 2-horse race. Maybe it's a 1-horse race. It's the Nationals to lose for sure. They definitely have the strongest lineup, and they definitely have the strongest pitching staff without question.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry that they're going to win that division.
But the Mets have added some pieces. The Mets have a lineup now that consists of some veteran run-producing guys, Todd Frazier, Jay Bruce, Yoenis Cespedes, and then guys like Michael Conforto. So the Mets, if they could get something going with that lineup, and barring the injuries in that rotation, you're looking at the top of that rotation as good as anybody in Major League Baseball. At their peak performance, at their peak value, and that's a big if for the Mets
biggest thing
every
for
year.
Me there with the Mets is new manager, because the way things had been the last few years with Collins, it was he couldn't get out of his own way. Did everything he could pretty much to sabotage the team, and
for sure.
And the talent is there.
You can't not go deep into the playoffs.
The talent is there. Syndergaard's healthy.
Syndergaard, DeGrom,
did you
and
see
Harvey.
what he did in his first start, spring training?
Was that today?
I think it was last week. He hit triple digits 11 times in his first spring game.
So he's healthy.
And that actually kind of had me worried a little bit. I'm thinking like, wow, Syndergaard's coming off an injury, and he is just firing it out there over 100 miles an hour 11 times. I don't know how many innings he went. Probably 2 or 3 innings, I'm guessing.
I think that the Mets are probably in dire need of a revamp in that organization in terms of strength and conditioning.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
And it's something that's inherently wrong with the Mets every single year.
Did they make any changes along with Callaway? Did they do anything with strength and conditioning, or
I'm not sure, but typically when they change the top of the organization, they're into changing, the rest of the organization. There's organizations out there like the Minnesota Twins come to mind, and the St. Louis Cardinals, also the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have a culture, and that culture starts. And the Yankees, of course, too, and there's other teams out there. But, St. Louis and Minnesota are the two that come to mind. They have that culture that they start in A ball, in rookie ball, in Arizona Fall League, and they really instill that culture all the way up to the major league level. And it shows with, they had Kelly for the longest time, and then Gardenhire, and now Paul Molitor. Those are all twin guys, if you think about it in terms of that. So maybe the Mets need to look at going in that direction.
Another Mets pitcher who is constantly hurt, Matt Harvey's been hitting 96 on the gun this spring.
Matt Harvey,
he's been looking okay.
It's tough to say that Syndergaard doesn't have the best stuff out of all of them.
When
you just see him throwing 100, and then he's got the devastating slider. But Matt Harvey might be the best pitcher out of all three of them. At their peak value, when you look at all of them across their career when they've been at their peak, Matt Harvey might be the best. He hits on all of those metrics. He's got 4 pitches. He's a head case. He's an absolute
That's
head
the problem
case.
there. And for Matt Harvey and Mets fans' sake, hopefully Callaway can get him straight here and kind of give him a clean slate. And
Agreed.
As long as he's healthy, then that he's got a high, just as a high ceiling as anybody else in the league.
So I mean,
the problem is, like you said, it's all mental. Is he going to be able to bounce back from these rough couple of years? And playing in New York is not the, to put it lightly, not the easiest place to play when you're going through some self-doubt,
No, not at all. You're going to be on the back page of the Post.
Right.
Every single time with a clever headline about the Dark Knight or something tied in with that.
So you have the Mets second then, right?
I do. I have the Mets second. I got the Nets winning. But I got the Mets potentially giving them a run in that division just because of that pitching.
See, I went a little bit different with my predictions. I got Washington as number 1.
Okay.
I went with a little bit of a sleeper.
The Atlanta Braves.
No, not even the Braves. I went with the Phillies at number 2.
All right.
They've got some decent young arms. Aaron Nola. He's opening day starter this year.
Rightfully so.
What that Reese Hoskins kid did last year,
sure,
that was incredible.
They go
what
out
he
and
did
spend,
in the second half
they
of the
spend
year.
money. Well,
Carlos Santana.
They get Carlos Santana. They were Odubel Herrera at one point in time, really late in the offseason. Odubel Herrera was the only committed contract on the Phillies. The only committed. Everybody else was pre-arb eligible under organizational control. So you want to talk about a team that if they're able to hang around somewhere tracking to be an 85 or 88 win team, somewhere around that deadline, they can go out and get some guys and take on some money because they got a whole lot of room there.
Yeah,
and they got
they
a
have
young
to figure
core.
out their bullpen too there. That's the one thing. And as do the Mets, really, too. But
well, Juris Familia is going to be back.
He's back, but he's kind of a question mark after his last year.
Has any Mets closer really ever not been a question mark except Billy Wagner?
Good point.
John Franco, maybe.
Yeah, that's probably how far you have to go.
You got to go back to John Franco, but
so
they've been through their share of Armando Benitez.
The Phillies above the Mets, but that is a toss up. So I got Washington, Philly, the Mets. And then you mentioned Atlanta. They got an incredible young core of talent there.
And maybe
Acuna and
top
some other
5
players.
player. They got a top 5 player on their team, in my opinion. Another guy that checks all the boxes. And top 5 is such hyperbole. It's really hard to quantify that. But Freddie Freeman.
Their time's coming, Atlanta.
Freddie Freeman is a top 5 guy.
I don't think it's
I
going to
think they
be
got
this year.
skunked on the Dansby Swanson deal. The way it looks on the surface right now is they got skunked on it. But who knows? The guy's that's a big specimen playing shortstop right there, too.
Well, they surprisingly didn't really give up that much for Dansby Swanson. It was Shelby Miller was the cornerstone of the deal, and he just flamed right out.
You want to talk about making bad deals? Arizona, when we get to Arizona. Arizona's just got a history of making some really
Atlanta's time is
deals.
coming, and I agree completely on Freddie Freeman. He's an incredible talent.
So we got we got the Nats and the Mets in the same spot, and we got the Braves and the Phillies transposed, and I think we can both agree that the Marlins are probably going to finish last.
That was
last in the NL
That was
East.
Almost as easy as putting Washington first for me, throwing Miami at the bottom of that
It was,
division.
and it's unfortunate. But anybody that is a Jeter fan, that's questioning these motives, don't question, because that man's a winner, and he wasn't ever going to invest, even if it was a limited amount of his money or a limited amount of the share of that team. There was never going to be a reason in hell he was going to take that team and not try to make it a winner.
Right.
And he's doing what he needs to do by shedding contracts and getting younger talent and getting a culture in that organization. So that's a team that you're going to see revamped from bottom to top, top to bottom, and maybe in 3 or 4 years be in a position to turn it around like the Astros and the Cubs. You know, the Astros had to lose 110 games back-to-back seasons or 3 out of 4 seasons in order to make this turnaround happen. So, I mean, we've seen it happen.
That's what's usually required. I mean, the Yankees are kind of
the Yankees
like
are an anomaly on that. They did it
here.
in 3 or 4 trades, but you know that was shrewd. That's also in a position where the Yankees did take on contracts that other teams couldn't in a few of those deals. You know, but not to jump ship, but you know, the deals for like Didi Gregorius for Shane Green and things of that nature. Those are the shrewd deals that Cashman has made and was able, and you know, trading 2 relievers and turning a whole farm system around with Justice Sheffield and Clint Frazier and Gleyber Torres just by trading 2 relievers and then re-signing
and already having Sanchez and Judge in the system and being on the verge
and really,
or in the majors.
You know, the Tyler Austins and Tyler Wades and Domingo Acevedos, and you know, they got a lot of guys that were still home, and Luis Severino, Chad Green. They had a lot of guys already there, like you said. So it was easy. 2 trades and maybe a couple other offseason moves really revamped the youth movement on that roster.
So
but
that's not the norm.
It's an unachievable process.
You really have to do what Miami or Houston have done.
So
Chicago did.
I wouldn't count out the Marlins. Maybe 2020, right around there.
And Atlanta's another team that has gone through that.
But they're starting to peak.
Yeah,
they're starting to peak out of that.
They're just to the point where they've got the young talent on
new
the verge.
stadium, and they did a smart thing last year.
Watch out for Ronald Acuna too. He's going to be an exciting player.
They did I don't know if he starts off the season on the roster, but
if I was
he's due in May.
I would do the whole Chris Bryant thing.
Exactly. It's going to be called it'll be the Chris Bryant rule eventually.
And not to come back to the Yankees again, but I would do the exact same thing with Gleyber Torres. But
it's going to be known as the Chris Bryant rule eventually.
Yeah, that's what I pretty much call it.
And that's what they're going to do with him. So you're not going to see him. You'll see him in May.
Trey Turner was another one.
But again, another one. You just named off another top 5 player, and that's a reason that we both have Washington up near the top is Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, and that pitching staff.
So Washington wins the division.
Agreed.
Nobody else in that division is in the playoffs. No wild cards from the NL East. So moving on,
I reserve the right on the Mets.
Potentially the Mets, you think?
I reserve the right on the Mets.
That brings us to the NL
or the
Central.
Phillies. Or the Phillies should, and obviously a lot of things would have to happen with the Phillies, but just in a position of where they're at with money and the ability to add on and take on veteran contracts. You look at a team like San Francisco, if that experiment doesn't work, they're selling off. You might have a landing spot for some guys like that to add some talent.
I would say look for them.
Don't rule out the Phillies on like a Mike Moustakas.
Look for them to add some relief pitching too. I mean, whether it's at the deadline or what. I mean, that's if they're in contention, that's what they're going to need.
That's what everybody's going to need.
That's what everybody
because you're going to have to
always, except for the Yankees.
Let's get to the Central now.
The
Central is interesting.
I got the Cubs winning, and I think it's kind of weird. I think people are almost kind of sleeping on the Cubs a little bit this year. I haven't really heard that much talk about them being like a top flight World Series contender.
So they come off a flat start last year. All right, coming off, clearly you're going to have that World Series hangover.
Yeah, obviously they're looked at as an elite team, but any of these predictions that you kind of read up on or listen to, it seems like the Cubs aren't being mentioned as the NL's elite anymore, which I completely disagree with.
Did you see Kyle Schwarber?
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
He looks like you. No,
I didn't even recognize him.
He's slender.
He is.
He's very slender. It's impossible to recognize him, but he's still got that big old dome. So he kind of looks like one of them bobbleheads.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did make a note here to mention Kyle Schwarber's transformation.
Yeah.
He looks great, though.
All these experts for 2 years straight were predicting this guy to be like a 330 type hitter. And he
was in the minors, yeah.
You're talking about a guy that's, 230 at the major league level last year. So, if you can see him bounce back, you might see the Cubs run away and hide. with the pitching staff, with the strength of the pitching staff, especially at the top of that rotation.
Yep.
You might see
even at the bottom, they got some good pitchers towards the bottom too. They signed
Tyler
Chatwood from
yep.
Colorado, and they have Mike Montgomery, and is their sixth guy, kind
Sure.
of bullpen / starter when needed if somebody goes down, and that's a great bottom of the rotation.
And and you're butting that up against the Quintanas and the Darvishes.
John Lester.
And John Lester.
He slipped a little bit, but he's still a quality starter.
And he's left-handed.
Yep.
And that's worth its weight in gold still in today's game. Just don't try to pick anybody off, John Lester.
So Cubs, I got winning.
He rolled one over. He rolled one to first base in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. I got Milwaukee.
I got Milwaukee second too.
place.
So
I also have Milwaukee with a wild card this year.
I don't disagree with you.
I like what they did with the outfield.
Biggest upgrades of any team this offseason.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up signing one of these pitchers that's still out there.
I wouldn't be surprised if Lance Lynn or a Cobb. I think Lance Lynn probably translates best, being a guy that's familiar with the division. But, yeah, I definitely think they're in play on one of those. And you're talking about another team with some money to spend, not a whole lot of committed contracts. Grab Christian Yelich from the Marlins, go sign Locaine.
In the same day.
And like we mentioned earlier, you're putting them in the class of maybe having one of the best outfields, at least in the National League, but certainly a top 5 outfield in the game now.
Sure.
Domingo Santana's a guy that I drafted. I don't know if you remember 2 years ago, I drafted him on prospect because I thought he was going to be really good. I watched him all spring training, and he kind of fizzled, and they sent him down. They brought him back up.
You were 1 year off.
But I was 1 year
Yep.
off. And Domingo Santana is a guy that I don't know. Sky's the limit for that guy. He was untouchable in a lot of trade talks. Ryan Braun is on the decline there, but still a professional hitter. Potentially a guy that they could move someplace near the middle of the season if somebody's willing to take on contract. Travis Shaw. A really solid team. And I wouldn't rule them out of winning that division. They're probably a starter short, but like we said, that's an addressable situation on a 1 year deal anyway. I got St. Louis third. I apologize.
I also have St. Louis third. So Chicago, Milwaukee, St. Louis, and then rounding out the bottom, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh.
But I don't think that Cincinnati is a team that I don't know. I have them down there too, just because that's what the paper tells you that they're going to be. But that's a team with some pop. That's an interesting team. They got some interesting pieces in that bullpen too. The Raisel Iglesias.
Yep, they do, and they have some good young
Eugenio
starting
Suarez and Schiebler and Adam Duvall, Joey Votto, who's again we're talking about a top 10 player, second in the MVP voting last year.
Yeah,
so
he's a surefire Hall of Famer in my book.
I don't think it's even a question.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a question. You're talking about a guy that never pulls a ball. Never pulls a ball. He just doesn't pull the ball. It's not in his repertoire, and he still just absolutely dominates the game. And a lot of people's knock on Joey Votto is that he walks. Give me 10 Joey Vottos. Give me 15 Joey Vottos. Because walks are still getting guys on base. And I don't know. I'm a big Joey Votto fan, actually. I like him. He's a dry guy, real dry sense of humor. Hates opposing fans. Kind of in a jocular way. He's a character.
He's known for being out on the field pre-game, just torturing.
He's one of my favorite characters in the game. If I had to say my favorite character in the game right now is Adrian Beltre, though. I really, 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 I just like what he brings to the game. He's very jovial. But we won't jump ship on that.
That's another obvious Hall of Famer.
Let's get to what I think personally is the best division or most complete division, top to bottom in Major League Baseball right now, and that's the NL West. Certainly a lot of talent. To have LA up at the top is where I have LA. Certainly a lot of talent to say that we can't have them anywhere but first, right?
Yeah, I have LA winning the division as well.
Arizona and Colorado are right on their heels, in my opinion, and maybe both a piece away. Colorado probably a pitcher away, maybe some help in that bullpen. They did go out and sign a closer this year, so. Colorado and Arizona very close. I would have Arizona winning my other wild card because I also had Milwaukee too. I thought I was going to be an anomaly. I thought I was going to surprise you with that Milwaukee move, and then
you took it from me. I've got Colorado second and taking the second wild card. But it is a toss-up,
Yeah.
And we're still early on. I know we're a few weeks away from the season, but we touched on it quite a bit that there are still a lot of good free agents out there.
Sure there is.
And some of these signings could change these predictions.
I'm really
at the drop of
surprised
a
that
dime.
Arizona didn't touch J.D. Martinez. I'm really surprised because it just made a whole lot of sense after the tear that he went on last year and how much of a glue that he was to that lineup. And now instead of saying, Pollock and Goldie, now it's Pollock, Goldie, and J.D., and that matches up better with the Colorado where you're talking about like Arenado and LeMahieu and Blackman. That matches up. But I got Arizona second. I
have no argument with that. I
all right,
got Colorado
so I like
second,
Greinke
I
and
could go
Robbie
either way
Ray
on
and
that.
T1 Walker. I like the way that sets up. And Archie Bradley perhaps closing games this
Yep.
year. I do. I have, by default, I have Colorado third. I have Frisco fourth and San Diego
Yep,
fifth.
I've got San Francisco and San Diego rounding out the 4 and 5 spots there.
But,
So-
I don't. For as much talent that sits in that division, I really think it separates itself very soon. I don't think the San Francisco experiment's going to work, to tell you the honest truth. But, talking with a friend earlier who is a very big Frisco Giants fan, he sees it as that fire sale happening and them really kickstarting that revamp and maybe being able to do it the way the Yankees did across 1 or 2 seasons rather than really shutting it down and only winning 51 or 52 games for a few years. But honestly, I don't see that experiment working. But the pitching, they got pitching. So it's tough to count out when you have when you can go Bumgarner, Cueto, and Samardzija up at the top. It's really hard to discount that pitching staff too, because they can get hot, and they can win games, 3-1, 3-2.
And they can be good tradable assets too if it goes the other way, and you
And
have
it's an
those
even
guys on
it's
your
an even
team.
year apparently, and apparently the
Yeah,
Giants are
that's-
good in
that's a
even
good
years.
point.
And Bochy's a guy out there that's got a lot of respect around the league, and rightfully so. He gets results out of maybe perhaps not the best rosters all the time. A mixture of young guys and veteran guys. But I think this is just a little heavy on the veteran presence here. You got some guys. It's the old Yankee philosophy, buying a guy after his best 5 years,
Right.
when he's on the verge of his decline.
Yeah.
And now the new, I hate to keep harping on the Yankees, but the new philosophy there is, you get a guy right on the cusp of his best 5 years, and you go from there.
Which brings us to the AL
It
East.
does. It brings us to the AL East. Who you got?
Got the New York Yankees
I got Boston.
winning the division. Yeah, you got Boston, huh?
I do. And as much of a surprise as that is, I think, even though Boston has a new manager too, I just think that between the media and all of the burdens that come along with it, I honestly think you're looking at like 103 and a 98 win season out of those two teams.
It's
You
nice
know what
to
I mean?
have this Yankees-Boston rivalry baback, where it should be, where they are just slugging it out. I know Boston won the division last year, and the Yankees, what was it, 3 games, 4 games back? I don't remember what
They made a run.
Yeah, and for a good portion of the season, they were right there within a few games, and it made for an interesting division race, and that's great for baseball. Whether you hate the Yankees or hate Boston, or love either of these teams, that
It's good for
storyline
baseball.
is good for
It
baseball.
is 19 times a season you get to have it, and hopefully 7 times sometime in September you get to have that.
Now, hopefully, all the games aren't 5 hours though.
Pace of play, a big topic. Maybe we'll get into that in our next show. We'll discuss the changes coming up for pace of play.
What do you think about David Price? Do you think he's going to have a bounce back year?
The
'Cause
only
I
thing
think
that,
they need him to bounce
You know,
back.
the only thing that I can say about David Price is because of the year that he had last year, that contract isn't recoupable for the Red Sox in terms of it being a horrible deal for the Red Sox now, because he's getting $1 million a start. I think that's one of the top 3 or 4 worst contracts in Major League Baseball.
It's $1 million to start if he's healthy.
If he's healthy.
If he's healthy and plays the whole
It's $1
season.
million a start in a perfect world. What is it? 33 for the year, something to the effect of.
Yeah, it's usually about that. If a pitcher doesn't miss, maybe
Well,
one.
million. He's getting
yeah. So,
33
yeah,
million a year.
about $1 million to start if he's healthy.
getting $1 million a start, and I think, they certainly can't afford to have him do what he did last year. But that's a guy with the tangible assets of a dominant starter. We've seen him go and be dominant. So it's certainly a guy to keep your eye on. When you can go lefty-lefty up at the top of your rotation like that between Sale and Price, that could be devastating in a 2-game set on the weekend, a Saturday, Sunday game with the Yankees, because traditionally the Yankees don't hit lefties very well. That could be a devastating for any team that they're close with. Let's say Toronto was on their heels or they really needed to grab 2 games. You go Sale Price. It's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah.
The bullpen leaves something to be desired, perhaps,
except for
other
Kimbrel,
than Kimbrel at the end. The bullpen leaves something to be desired in the middle. But I think that the lineup overall is a more complete lineup than the Yankees.
So the JD Martinez signing was huge. We touched on that. I'm not going to get too much into that, but that bat in that lineup. And as a Yankees fan, I was crossing my fingers and hoping he was going to go back to Arizona, because he's the type of guy that every time
Get him out of the
comes up to
division.
the plate,
when healthy,
all it takes is one swing of the bat to
healthy,
change a game.
He plays to
change a close game.
Plays to a 310 hitter for his career when healthy. When he's on the field, he produces, and that's really a glue type signing for them to glue the rest of that. The killer bees. You remember the Bagwell, Biggio, Bell, right? So now they got their own killer bees with Benintendi, Betts, Bradley, and Bogarts, and then Rafael Devers. And some veteran guys like Pedroia hanging around. I like the way that lineup plays in that division. I like the way that lineup plays against, the other games that they have to play against the National League. I just think that they could overwhelm a lot of teams. I honestly think you're looking at a hotly contested AL East up at the top.
At the top, yeah.
And then nothing else underneath
that was
it.
my next point.
Nothing. I think Toronto is at
very weak division once you get to
Toronto
3, 4,
is
and 5.
at a point where they're going to have to think about blowing up with dynamite too.
Yeah,
Baltimore.
I think you'll see Donaldson get traded this year.
I do too.
He's a free agent after the end of the year. Toronto kind of botched that whole thing.
I'm pretty surprised that nobody made a play for Donaldson after what the Yankees did, adding Stanton and adding who else did they add this year? Nobody. CeCe. They signed CeCe. Found out a way to add Brandon Drury. Well, recently. I thought that earlier in the offseason, when you see the Yankees go add Stanton, and now you see the Red Sox add JD Martinez, what are you doing? You guys got to blow it up. You're not going to compete in that division with those 2 teams. So why hang on to Donaldson when you can completely turn around your entire franchise by trading a guy like Josh Donaldson? Sure. And Baltimore, the same thing. How Baltimore hasn't expressed more of an interest in trading Manny Machado is beyond me, because he's not going to sign with you.
Yeah, he's another one.
He's not going to sign with you.
Very
His
similar
value
scenario
is
to Donaldson.
high right now, and you can turn your entire franchise around, or at least your farm system around with that trade. And not lose anything when he books for free agency, without being able to get somebody back for him. So I think you're going to see those teams. Tampa Bay is already a minor league team.
I had a hard time deciding who to put third just because of how weak the bottom division is. But I did put Toronto just because of the current state of the roster. But, when you think long-term about possible trade deadline and stuff, you can put Baltimore in the same boat. Tampa's already gotten rid of all, their good players except for Kiermaier, pretty much.
Yeah, poor Kevin Kiermaier out there, robbing homers for the Yankees. Listen, he turns into Mickey Mantle when he plays against the Yankees.
He does.
I really have an affinity.
He is
for
one
Kevin.
of those guys.
He is, absolutely. I got Toronto third. I don't see Toronto, Baltimore, or Tampa Bay. I see a better race for them racing for the bottom than I see them.
Yeah, I agree. I got Toronto, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, but take your pick on where you slot those teams. I think Tampa Bay is pretty much.
I got the Yankees as my first wild card, and like I said, I think you're looking at 2 teams that race for 100 wins here, and perhaps just really separate themselves at least from the rest of the league, but definitely the division. Because there's some really good teams we're about to get to. Yeah,
it's going to be a fun race
in the next 2 divisions.
It's going to be cool to see, that old Yankees-Boston rivalry slugfest back and forth this season.
I think there's an equal amount of
excited
teams,
for it.
An equal amount of teams in both leagues that are really in contention, and an equal amount of teams that should just blow it up, coming right out of the Cactus or Grapefruit League.
Speaking of contenders, AL Central, Cleveland.
It's not. It might be closer than I think it's going to be, but I don't think it's close.
I don't think it's going to be too close. Although I do have
Minnesota
a sleeper in that division,
really?
And I've got, which is Minnesota.
Okay.
And I have them making the second wild card this year.
It's not out of the realm of possibilities. They did it last year.
As long as Sano can I think he's already hurt, but if he can play, a good portion of the season, say 75% of the season, there's your elite power hitter. Buxton, he's got to turn it around and do something. He showed
some signs last year near the end of the season.
To the point
he
where
really
he's
sparked
got that
it.
confidence back, where he can be a good quality player for them to build around too. Pitching, they addressed it a little bit. They added Odorizzi from Tampa.
Jake Odorizzi, yeah. Who didn't add somebody from Tampa this year?
And Bartolo Colon's with Minnesota too, right? Is that where he ended up going?
Did he sign there?
I think he did, yeah.
Good.
I could be wrong on that, but not that he's an
but they have
pitcher these days, but good veteran
Berrios.
presidents in the rotation. Berrios is another good one. So they're almost kind of like Atlanta. I don't think they have the elite high-end prospect like an Acuna. Buxton kind of was considered that.
Well, he was, yeah, absolutely.
But
maybe a Miguel Sano, even though he's not a prospect anymore.
Right.
But that's another young guy.
I don't think Buxton can be considered to have the upside of somebody like Acuna right now, but he's been in the majors for a couple of years, and
we haven't seen it yet. We really haven't.
We have not seen
glimpses
Acuna at all. So
we've seen glimpses of what Buxton can do.
So they're kind of, like I mentioned, Atlanta. They're kind of in the same boat as a team like that, and I think they're a little closer. They've made some, additions like Odorizzi to shore up their pitching, and I think that they could surprise people and sneak into that wild card. I mean, they almost did it last year.
Sure.
So I got Minnesota second, taking the wild card.
As do I. Yep. I got Detroit.
I've got the Chicago White Sox, pretty much for the same reasons that I just laid out for Minnesota. Elite young talent everywhere.
But their ace is James Shields.
But they have good young pitching too.
I agree. Lucas Giolito, which is
Kopech.
that's just a head school. Listen, you want to talk about the most impressive person that I've seen this entire spring training so far, and that's Kopech.
So I have him
that kid's
third,
got stuff.
so I'm not saying they're going to go out there and light
absolutely.
up the league.
I agree, and we're in a situation here where we could probably flip flop a bunch of these teams near the bottom of the Central again. So this is just for fun.
Then I got Detroit fourth.
Yep,
that's just a team that is kind of in shambles right now.
Well, they're in limbo too. That's another team that should probably think about blowing it up with TNT.
And Kansas City last.
Yeah, I got Kansas City last. Such a sad case in a team like Kansas City, San Diego too. But a team like Kansas City, it's sad when you have all of those home players, and you can't get them to come back. They could have gone out and made a play for Locane, and they could have gone and made a play for Hosmer and Moustakas, and they did re-sign only one of them. They re-signed Alcides Escobar. So if you're Esco in that, I believe they signed Lucas Duda last week to a 1-year deal. I'm pretty sure
they did. Yeah. Former Matt Lucas Duda there now. Yeah.
Listen, that's a guy with pop. That's one of those guys. If that's your 8-hitter or your 7-hitter, and even if he's got to bump up in the lineup somewhere to give you some pop,
it's a bat for a contender. But for a team like Kansas City,
he can't be the focus.
Again, it's somebody they could probably flip and get some prospects for.
Sure, but he can't. He can't be the focus.
No.
And if Lucas Duda is the focus of your offense.
When Lucas Duda is your top power hitter,
so if you're Alcides Escobar, you signed really early, probably expecting some of your boys to come back. You really got to be scratching your head. What are the Royals doing to me? It's a sad case because you're talking you're 2 years removed from being World Series champs. 3 years removed from being 3 to 4 years from getting yourself into the playoffs for the first time in years. And, it's just a sad case because it's all
At least they have their World Series title. So to wrap up the show, let's cover the AL West, which I think is one of the better divisions in baseball.
It's a good division.
But I still only have one playoff team coming from the AL West because I think Boston is, from what I said, Boston or the Yankees are going to get that other wild card. And I have Minnesota being a kind of a little bit of a sleeper team this year. So AL West, World Series champion, Houston Astros, winning that division.
Totally agree. And I don't. It's a Cleveland thing. All right. I think could be close. Somebody could keep it close in that division, but really going into the season, you don't expect any. You expect Houston to be heads and shoulders above everybody else in that division. Just as I look at Cleveland the same way.
Right. And
you know,
Washington in the NL
Minnesota's
East,
going to be really good. Okay, they got some pieces. They added some more pieces. They made the playoffs last year, but can they really keep it close? Or are they playing for a wild card right from the beginning of the season?
There is a clear-cut favorite.
Yes, absolutely. I have Seattle second.
I've got the LA Angels second.
Okay.
I
Discuss
have
that.
Seattle third.
Okay.
The Angels, we'll see what Ohtani does there. I mean, that's going to be kind of an exciting story to follow along. He's been looking good in spring. Garrett Richards coming back. Came back at the end of last year and looked pretty good. Hopefully for their sake, he's going to be healthy this year. Mike Trout, phenomenal.
Yeah, you got 3 players into the Angels without
phenomenal
saying Mike Trout.
is an understatement. I figured that just went without saying.
Yeah, best player in the game.
Um,
Best player in the game, maybe one of the best we've ever
signed a couple other decent guys. They picked up Ian Kinsler,
which is a good move. That's a veteran guy, top of the order guy. Had some really productive years with the Rangers and with the most recently with the Tigers. I don't know. I like Seattle. I like Seattle.
Well, Zach Kozar, I think they also signed. So they picked up some good pieces. Nothing.
Absolutely. If the Shohei Ohtani experiment ends up coming to fruition,
that's the big wild card.
But if it comes to fruition and he's able to pitch 20 starts a year,
if he can be an ace for 20 starts,
then
that could turn the tides for that.
Sure.
Competing for that second spot in that
20 starts.
division.
I don't think that they can overload the kid right out of the gate. He's coming from Japan. A little bit different story in Japan with the way that they work rotations. They don't play games on the weekend apparently, so it's a 5-day week over there. They pitch once a week. A lot of rest. If you're a Yankee fan, you understand that Masahiro Tanaka pitches really well, with the longer rest that you give him. So there's that learning curve of coming over into it's a different game. But 101 translates. That's the one thing that translates from one league to the other is nobody's controlling how hard or how much he can make that ball move.
Right.
All right. So in the box, is there going to be a little bit of a learning curve for Shohei Ohtani, the hitter? There may be. But the game doesn't change when you're 60 feet 6 inches away standing on that rubber, and 101 translates in any language that you want to speak. So, it's achievable for the Angels, but I just like the depth of the lineup in Seattle a little bit more. Nelson Cruz, Kyle Seager.
Yeah, and I have Seattle third.
Segura and Gordon.
Gordon was a nice pickup there,
it's
too.
It's a good pickup. That's a pickup off of the
Miami Fire sale. And they're putting him in the outfield now.
And he's going to play center field. So, they got Mitch Haniger's another guy out in that outfield. Nelson Cruz, D. Gordon,
you mentioned Domingo Santana earlier, how you were 1 year off.
1 year off.
That's kind of the guy I'm thinking that this could be one of those, because he was kind of a little bit of a under-the-radar sleeper coming into last year, and he started out the season on fire.
Who's that, Haniger?
Haniger.
Yeah, I totally agree with
that. And then Haniger got hurt,
Sure.
and I think he was out for a month and a half, maybe even 2 months. And when he came back, he was just not the same. All that momentum that he had in spring and early part of the regular season just was shot after he got hurt. So he is a guy that you could see kind of be, in that mold of not skill set per se, but where Domingo Santana was kind of one of those guys 2 years ago where you said, this guy he could be great this year. And people said that last year about Haniger. This year, people kind of just, might be a little bit of an afterthought. And then who knows, all of a sudden he could come out here and hit 30 bombs. He's got that kind of power.
So
the Seattle does have a good lineup, and I expect them to be in contention for that second spot, maybe even a wild card.
A lot of this is a tough division to call, really, because there's a lot of very similarly constructed teams.
That's why I say it is one of the better divisions.
It is.
There's only one elite team, but your Angels, Seattle, and you
Oakland,
could even put Texas in
Texas.
there too. Very on paper, evenly even matchups for those three teams. So
Sure.
Tough division to predict, but I have Houston, Angels, Seattle, Texas, and Oakland.
Well, so I switched it up. I got Houston, and I got Houston winning the division. I have Seattle as my second wild card. All right. So I'm expecting big things out of the Seattle Mariners for once. Always making so many shots at trying to put a winner out there, making big splash signings like the Canoes and the Nelson Cruzes. But I think 1 year or so they need to get over the hump and actually get there. So I got Seattle second, and also as my second wild card, followed up by the Rangers, the Angels, and the A's. A lot of exciting stuff still to happen before we even say play ball.
Yeah,
March,
for sure.
March
Yeah,
29th.
and there's a lot of free agents still to sign.
A lot of pieces to fall.
A lot of things will happen before
a
the
lot of
season
injuries
starts.
probably to happen. Knock on wood that it's nobody that we like.
And we'll be back to talk about it. I'm not sure exactly when the next one's going to be. We're going to be live broadcasting the draft 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, March 18th. Tune in. I don't know what time we're going to start, but we'll have it out there. Check.
Usually 1 or 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Yep.
Don't forget about the clocks changing.
Go over to Facebook if you haven't already done it. Like the Disruption Networks, like EC Radio, like Ease Beats and Bizz, like the D Line, like Home Free.
Yeah,
everything on the Disruption
keep an eye
Networks.
on Disruption Network for our schedule. We'll be back here soon, and I want to give a quick shout out to Coldwell Banker, Josh Amodio at Priceless Inspections, and Apple Box Video. Great sponsors, good supporters of the D, and
absolutely only possible on the D right here. So this is the first baseline. I guess we're we're gonna close it out. We're gonna preview one of our segments that we're gonna have coming up, getting towards the season, and we're gonna give you a little 3 up and 3 down. Sean is gonna talk to you for anybody that's got their draft coming up this week and needs a little advice of who to grab or who to look out for. Sean's got some guys for you to listen to, right?
All right, we've talked about a few of these guys already. I'm just going to run through this real quick because we did go over quite a bit because we had so much fun talking baseball today. But,
talking baseball.
So my 3 up, I got 1 Yankee, 1 Red Sox, and a Chicago Cub in there. Greg Bird.
Okay,
I like Greg Bird this year.
I like Greg
Bird too. As long as he can stay on the field, which is the continual problem with Greg Bird. But I think the way that Boone will construct that lineup is likely going to be splitting up the 2 big right-handed bats or 3 big right-handed bats. And I think you could see Greg Bird hitting cleanup in that lineup with all that talent.
I don't disagree with you there.
Obviously, the short right field porch, Yankee Stadium.
Left-handed.
His swing is tailor-made for that
and
stadium.
It's a beautiful swing, too.
Gorgeous swing.
It really is a beautiful swing. Did you hold your heart when you read the line, the headline that they went out and signed Adam Lynn? Did you hold your heart thinking that's something, and then literally 15 minutes later they released the lineup and Greg Bird was in it?
I did. I actually sent you a message about that yesterday. Yes. I just hope nothing happened to Greg Bird.
Absolutely.
And luckily, so far everything's good with Bird. He's in the lineup, and he had a torrid spring last year. Another guy that just got a tough luck injury and just derailed his
8 or 9
season.
homers last spring, and he's got that home run burst potential. But I also think that he's a really good pure hitter. I think he's got gap power. He can go the other way. He's a pretty good first baseman. I like that. Greg Bird.
So Greg Bird, my Red Sox player on the list is Rafael Devers.
Okay, 19, 20 years old.
20 years old. Yep. Was very good last year.
Sure.
And again, in a good Boston lineup, good hitters park. I think he's primed for a good season.
Yeah. It's kind of a similar thing that maybe Yankee fans are hoping for with Gleyber Torres at some point in time, or maybe even a Miguel Andujar, is that you can hide him out in the 8 or 9 spot in your lineup and not put so much pressure on that guy, or a Cody Bellinger in the Dodgers. You're not expecting him to just be the man. You're expecting him to hide out and be my 8 or 9 hitter, no pressure kid, just go out and do it.
Sure, yeah.
And so Devers is in that position. Devers is in that position with Boston.
Right?
Yeah, whatever. He's in that position with Boston, so I like that.
He could be another one that's going to be, and he's not exactly under the radar, and neither is Bird. I mean, they're pretty well known players, but they're guys that you're going to see going a little bit later on in drafts. They're not in the top 3-4 rounds typically. So those are a couple guys you could see that could go late and could return great value.
Sure.
I wanted to throw a pitcher in there too, so and I brought his name up quick earlier. Tyler Chatwood going to Chicago Cubs.
Okay.
Not a great pitcher's park, obviously, Wrigley Field, but
he's coming from the worst.
And think about the division he's in. We talked about it. Milwaukee looks good, but and St. Louis is always right.
It's
right
St.
in the
It's
mix.
just because it's St. Louis.
And
Mike
then
Matheny.
You got Cincinnati and Pittsburgh that you're going to be playing a whole bunch of times this year. Weak lineups. I mean, Cincinnati's got some decent hitters, but relatively compared to some of these other teams, I think that they're going to be weaker hitting teams. And Chatwood at the bottom of that rotation for the Cubs.
At the bottom.
Could have a good season.
As
I
opposed to
think he
being
could
at the
have a good
top
season.
like he was in Colorado. He's at the bottom. So
So
you're right.
those are my 3 up.
Okay.
Now my 3 down.
3 down. Who are we staying away from in this draft?
It kind of pains me to say this because he has been one of the best hitters of our generation. Triple Crown winner Miguel Cabrera.
Okay.
I think you're starting to see that downturn with him, and he's still a good
He's
productive
really not
player.
even that old if you think about it, but he's just been here so
He came
long.
up when he was 19 or so, yeah. But
1997
you're
World
starting
Series.
to see some
or
mileage
2003
there.
World Series. I apologize.
There's always nagging injuries there, and again, I'm not saying he's not going to be a productive Major League Baseball player, but the days of him being an elite hitter as far as fantasy baseball purposes are over, I
Yes.
think. Sadly,
Agreed.
because he was a joy to watch in his prime. He's an incredible.
That's a late
player.
round pickup for sure now.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a comp for that would be for a pitcher would be like Felix Hernandez.
Right.
It pains you to watch it, but
And
is what
it's a
it
good
is.
example. Or you could even say it with Albert Pujols. He's a pretty good example of kind of the path that Miguel Cabrera is going to be taking
Sure.
here, where he's he's still an asset to a team, but he's not an elite superstar anymore.
Pujols or Cabrera this year, if you had to take one.
I think I would still take Miggy just because he is Miguel Cabrera, and yeah, you could say Pujols is Pujols too, but I think now there's been and Pujols did have a decent year last year.
He had an okay year.
But and Pujols is going to be in a better lineup, getting back to what we were talking about with the Angels. I would probably still take Miguel Cabrera, but it's one of those flip a coin type things for me.
And last but not least,
we got 2 more. We got Miguel Sano with the Twins. Love the upside there, but the guy's health just worries me. And I guess he showed up to camp, up to spring,
overweight.
very out of shape. And he was already a pretty robust guy.
Sure was. Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, I could be completely wrong, and the guy could go out and hit 40, 50 home runs and be the cornerstone of a great team. I think he's going to have a decent year. I just don't see him being one of those guys that you would draft kind of where he has been going in drafts. And,
No, he's a guy that's going to rely a lot on the pieces around him
Yeah.
performing in order to perform himself.
And he is an elite power hitter, don't get me wrong.
Sure,
but
you got to see the pitches.
Strikes out a lot.
You got to see the pitches. You got to see the strikes.
And
if you're not,
I'm expecting a little bit of a disappointing year from him. And Jake Lamb.
okay.
Jake Lamb, big power hitter for Arizona.
Sure.
He's been a good 30 home run guy, I think, for a couple of years now, or at least close to it. I think he hit 30 last year, but might have been just shy of that the year before. Arizona installed a humidor. I don't know if you've read up on that.
They did.
So they're going to be
It's
storing
actually going.
their
The humidors are
baseballs
going
in a humidor.
every park now.
And well, that's different. The humidor is only going in Arizona, but the baseballs are going to be stored in air-conditioned rooms across baseball. So the humidor is a little bit different. Think of where you'd store cigars so they don't dry out.
Sure.
So the baseballs are going to be a little damp to the point where it's going to deaden the ball a little bit. Could be great for guys like Greinke and Robbie Ray. Hitter-wise, they're saying it could have a significant impact on power there. So
30 doubles, 30 homers, 105 ribs, and 7 steals
great numbers.
last year for
Great
Jake
numbers,
Lamb.
but I think you're going to see a pretty good hit on his numbers because of the humidor and some other factors.
Sure.
He had a pretty bad second half of the year last year. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe he'll bounce back.
Arizona added another 30-homer guy, too. They added Steven Souza last week in
That's
the
right,
fire
yeah.
sale from Tampa.
That was as soon as Boston signed J.D. Martinez, they went out and pulled the trigger on the Souza deal.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing if you're, you don't want to go out and lose games to Tampa in the 19 you play them in the division, and you get a 30-homer guy off that team, it increases your chances a little bit. So it was nice to see him get out of the A at least. I will say that.
So I think that's a wrap for opening day on the baseline.
I think we did. I think we did it justice this week. Not bad for our first show, I will say. Looking forward to doing this the rest of the season. We're going to come up with as the season comes up and gets on us here, we're going to get a set date, and we're really going to start encouraging the live interaction and live phone calls. So can't wait.
Your wife checked in, Gaff. She says, don't give away all your secrets. And then Bandage checks in, and he goes, don't listen to your wife. Give away all your secrets. So, because you are Mr. Analytics.
I'm not giving away all my secrets.
I'm just going to give you my $100 right now.
Just a couple of them.
See here.
Tune in. Next week we will have another episode of the D-Line, and in 2 weeks, 2 Sundays from now, we are going to be live with the 15th annual Electric Company Fantasy Baseball League Draft.
I'm excited.
All 10 of us knuckleheads packed into a room, eating pizza, drinking beer,
and yelling at each other.
Carlos Gonzalez, he's good, right? Yeah. He's good.
Trying to get Johnson to come back.
I saw that today. You tagged him on Facebook. Mike Johnson, if you're out there listening, come on down for the draft.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely. I want to remind your listeners that they can listen to this podcast as soon as I'm done clipping it, which will be in just a little bit, on DisruptionNetwork.net. The all-new website, DisruptionNetwork.net.
DisruptionNetwork.net.
All right.
Everybody go out and like the D, and we will see you for the rest of the baseline this year. Can't wait. Thanks for tuning in.
We're out.